My name is Franklin, and I'm an atheist.
How would you know at all if you're being accurate?
I've read a lot about religion.
What exactly does through Jesus Christ mean?
What is it about their religion that resonates with who they are? It's not an anthropomorphic being. Is there an enemy? How does their religion make them a better person?
Can you explain to me and anybody who doesn't know what a mitzvah is?
What do they think is missing about how we understand the world?
What would be the difference between praying on a subject and just thinking on a subject?
Why don't people have superpowers anymore?
I think it's important to talk to them and find out what they believe.
Hello everyone. Thanks again to those who are helping out on Patreon. The links are here and down below in the thingy. There is an extended version of this interview and several others available exclusively to Patreon members. So if you help us out, you get a little bit more. The questions, once again, are marked out on the YouTube timeline, so if there's a question in which you have a particular interest, feel free to skip ahead. I hope you enjoy the interview, and make sure you stick around for the end when I talk about two things you probably don't know. Hello and welcome to the What They Believe series. Today I'm speaking with Imam Hammad of the Baitul Atta Mosque in Norcross, Georgia. Thank you for joining us, sir.
Thank you for having me.
Your sect's founder, Mirza Ghulam Ahmad, started out as a Sunni scholar. This is someone who thought very deeply about the Quran before deciding to create his new movement within Islam. What sets apart your community from the rest of the Sunni world?
So Mirza Ghulam Ahmad of Qadian, peace be upon him, was born into a Sunni family. And throughout his childhood, throughout his adulthood, he spent a lot of time studying and pondering over the Quran and praying. And throughout much of his life, before he made the claim of being the latter-day Messiah, much of the Muslim world actually hailed him as a hero. He wrote many books defending Islam from the attacks of other people. And so he was looked at by other Muslims, by Sunnis, even Shias, as a great stalwart in the religion of Islam. He started the movement based on revelations from God. God would reveal to him and tell him that you're a prophet, you're a messenger, you're the latter-day Messiah of this age, and your mission is to reform the Muslim people. And so he was ordered by God, so to speak, to start this movement of reforming Muslims and reforming the world and bringing the world back to unity, back to peace, back to love, through the teachings of the religion of Islam. And so that is how the movement started about. Now, the main difference between the Ahmadiyya Muslim community and you can say the rest of the Muslim world, whether it's Sunni, whether it's Shia or anybody else, the main difference, really the crux of the difference, comes to the point where the rest of the Muslim world is still waiting for the latter-day Messiah. They're still waiting for what we call the Imam Mahdi, as prophesied in various narrations of the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. See, he made a prophecy during his time that in the latter days, Muslims will become degraded. They'll devolve into chaos, they'll devolve into extremism, all of these things. And the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, prophesied that in that time, a Messiah will come. He used the word Jesus will reappear in the latter days to reform the Muslim ummah, to reform the Muslim community. And so while the Muslim world is still waiting for that Messiah, we believe that Mirza Ghulam Ahmad was that Messiah, that he was the one who was foretold and prophesied. He was the metaphorical second coming of Jesus, peace be upon him. And that's the crux of the difference. And many Muslims do believe that Jesus is still alive in the heavens and he'll physically descend in latter days. And our difference is that we believe that Jesus passed away peacefully and that he survived the crucifixion. He migrated to India, where he finished preaching to the lost tribes of Israel, which is what the Bible and the Quran tells us was his mission. And then he passed away there. And that the prophecies of his second coming were metaphorical, in the same way that Jesus himself said to the Jews who asked him that if you're the Messiah, then where is Elijah? He's supposed to come back. And Jesus said that, look to John the Baptist. He is the Elijah you're waiting for. So that was a metaphorical second coming. So in that same way, the second coming of Jesus was metaphorical, and that was Mirza Ghulam Ahmad of Qadian. And so that really is the main difference. We've accepted him as a prophet, a messenger, a Messiah, whereas the Muslim world says, no, that same literal Jesus must descend, and we're waiting for that person. And they tell us you've accepted somebody new, some new prophet or messenger. And for that reason, most of the Muslim world considers us outside of the pale of Islam.
Have you personally taken the Hajj? And what is the Ahmadiyya experience of the Hajj?
So personally, I have not taken the Hajj yet. The Hajj is compulsory once in the lifetime of a Muslim. And the condition is if the conditions allow, that if you're able to. If somebody's just not able to, then, that's not a sin upon them. And so far in my life, the conditions haven't allowed. It's very expensive, and I've never had that amount of money to go on Hajj. But generally speaking, even for Ahmadi Muslims, and I know many Ahmadi Muslims who have gone on Hajj and who do go on Hajj. Generally speaking, it is a little bit more difficult for an Ahmadi Muslim to go on Hajj, because in Saudi Arabia and in these Muslim countries, as Ahmadi Muslims, we're not officially called or looked at as a Muslim. So if you go on Hajj as an Ahmadi Muslim and they find out you're an Ahmadi Muslim, they won't let you in. So many Ahmadi Muslims do go, not that we're taught to hide our faith, we're taught to be proud of our faith and wear it on our sleeve. The only way they would find out you're an Ahmadi Muslim is if it's on your passport. So that's where, if you're an Ahmadi Muslim and you have a Pakistani passport where you're officially written as an Ahmadi, they technically just legally wouldn't be allowed to go. But if you have any other passport, like I have a Canadian passport, if you have an American passport, any passport at all, whatever, you have a Muslim sounding name, you look Muslim, you declare yourself as a Muslim, you're going in. And when we declare ourselves as a Muslim, that's truthful, because we believe we are following the true teachings of Islam. And so many Ahmadi Muslims do go on Hajj. And it's the same experience as any other Muslim going on Hajj. Again, we believe and we practice nothing other than the teachings of Islam as contained in the Quran, in the narrations of the Prophet Muhammad, all of his teachings, the way he performed Hajj, that's the exact way we would perform Hajj. The only added element would be that for an Ahmadi Muslim performing Hajj, you might be just a little bit more on guard in case somebody was to ask you a question about your being an Ahmadi Muslim. So that's just the only thing, but otherwise the experience of Hajj would still generally be the same thing, and the same unifying experience, the same kind of brotherhood that you would experience, and the same rejuvenation you would have in your life.
Mecca is within Saudi Arabia and is completely controlled by the Saudi royal family. Do you feel it's appropriate for one country to access a place that's as important as this?
So, it's a complicated question, because the nature of the world is, geographically speaking, whatever city it is, whether it's a holy city like Mecca, whether it's any kind of holy city, it's going to fall in some geographical boundary, and some state will have control over that geographical boundary. So at the end of the day, some state will end up controlling. You want to come to the United States, you have to come in and go through US customs and make sure you abide by the laws of the United States. All of those things, that's part and parcel of living anywhere in the world. You want to visit Rome, you even want to visit the Vatican, you have to be part of, you have to comply according to those rules. And so it is normal for an organization that would be the custodian or caretaker or the state to kind of manage people coming in and coming out, make sure it's peaceful and tolerant. The issue is that then it should be based on justice. So that really is the issue. The issue isn't that should somebody be controlling it or not. Somebody at the end of the day, some group or organization or state has to. The issue is, what are the rules or principles that they're running by? And that is the issue that we may have, is that they're not based upon justice, and they're not really based upon, you can say, the true teachings of Islam that we believe would allow for us and others to enter Mecca in that way.
Do you feel that Islam is undergoing a reformation, similarly to what Christianity in Europe went through hundreds of years ago?
So I do believe there is a reformation happening, but I'm going to kind of reframe your question a little bit. I don't believe Islam is undergoing a reformation, because our categorical belief is that Islam is a perfect religion. It's a religion that is unique, that is complete. And the religion itself, in terms of its teachings, the Quran, the sayings of the Prophet, don't need reformation. It's the people that need reformation. The people have moved away from the true fundamentals of the faith. And so that's what needs reformation. Now, the analogy I would draw, more than Christians in Europe, I would draw another analogy. And the analogy I would draw is the analogy of Jesus trying to reform the Jews. And that is the exact analogy I would use. That, when Moses came and he brought Judaism and he established these people, 1400 years after him, we do believe that the Jews denigrated a bit from their actual, from the spirit of their teaching. And the religious literature says they became rock-hearted and stiff and too abiding by the letter of the law, but not the spirit. And the mission of Jesus, for which God sent him, was to reform the Jews. He didn't come to change the Judaic religion. He came to reform the Jews and teach them, you're forgetting the spirit of the law. You're forgetting the elements of compassion and mercy that are inherent here, but you've forgotten them. And so he came to reform the Jews, and the Bible, the Quran, like I said, have openly said he was a messenger to the children of Israel. And so that is the analogous reformation happening in the Muslim world today. Is that Muslims, and again, I don't say every single Muslim, I don't want to say all Muslims, they're brothers and sisters for me in faith. We believe I think all of us believe in the same God, but at least as Muslims, we have a shared heritage of the same Prophet, the same Quran, all of these things. So, and there's many Muslims friends that I have, and I don't mean to say anything that means they're all bad, but generally speaking, much of the Muslim world, you look at Al-Qaeda, Boko Haram, Taliban, ISIS, all of these groups. When you look at these groups, you do see that there are a sizable, even if it's a minority, a sizable minority that has gone away from the true teachings of Islam, that has completely left what the fundamentals are, and there is a need for reformation. And so that was a mission of the Messiah, Mirza Ghulam Ahmad of Qadian, to teach Muslims that, this thing you call jihad, it's not a holy war. This is not, the jihad, Islam does not teach jihad means to go fight somebody and to the death and force them to convert. This is antithetical to Islam. The Prophet himself, and these are the things he taught from Islam. He didn't bring anything new. He said that the Quran itself says the greatest jihad is to implement the teachings of the Quran in your life. Once a prophet was returning from a journey, from an expedition, from a battle, and he said to his companions, we are returning from the smaller jihad to the greatest jihad. And the companions were like, what is that greater jihad we're going to? We were just in an expedition. And the Prophet said, it's the jihad in your homes, the jihad of yourself. It's the jihad of being a better Muslim, the jihad of being a better husband and father and brother and whatever it is you are. That is the true jihad in Islam. So he taught Muslims, forget this jihad you're crying about. The only physical jihad allowed in Islam is if you're being attacked, you can defend yourself, but you can never fight an offensive jihad. That jihad is a suppression of your base desires. And so these are the things he taught the Muslim world, reforming the Muslims, telling them that, Islam is not a religion that subjugates or oppresses women. Islam teaches that there is an equality in status, there is an equality in rights, and there's an equity in these roles and responsibilities that men and women have. Islam does define, of course, roles in society, but it doesn't say one is less or one is better or one is a greater or less than the other. And so he taught all of these things, that you can't seek to control women and lock them in their homes and force them to do these things. And they are independent human beings that we have to respect and realize this. And so he taught all of these things. And so this is the way in which his mission was to bring about a reformation in the Muslim world. And that is a mission that the Ahmadiyya Muslim community continues today under the leadership of the caliphate of the community, which continues till now.
Over the course of this series, I've gotten a lot of different theories on where the soul comes from. Some say it comes from the ethereal plane. Others describe it as like a light shining on the wall, whereas the flashlight is actually the soul, and we would just think of it as the light on the wall. Others say it descends from heaven and actually goes into the embryo. Where would you say the soul comes from?
Mirza Ghulam Ahmad of Qadian, the Messiah, he wrote a beautiful book called The Philosophy of the Teachings of Islam. And he beautifully taught the nature of the soul, where it comes from and what it is. And so basically what we believe is that the soul is not something that is eternal. It's not something that's infinite. It's not something that's always existed. God is the only being that is eternal, that has always existed. Anything and everything that exists besides God is creation of God. From the smallest quark in the universe to the largest other universes that may exist, whether they're universes past, present, future, parallel, whatever it is, everything is creation of God. And that means our soul as well is creation of God. It had a starting point. It's a finite thing that was created and was started. Now, the Messiah, Mirza Ghulam Ahmad of Qadian, in his book gives a beautiful example of the soul. And he says that the same way you take a piece of wood, the wood does not contain fire, right? But it possesses the latent ability of developing fire. When you strike it against each other, sparks fly, and then the fire erupts. And so he says the wood contains a latent ability, but it doesn't contain the soul itself, but it possesses the ability to spark the fire. And so in that same way, he says the sperm and the egg, they don't contain the soul, but they contain a latent ability to produce or to spark a soul. So when the sperm and the egg meet, and when that fertilization happens, that's when the soul is created. And that's what sparks that fire. And that's how a soul comes to being. And so the soul is a created thing. And once it's created, then it then has a relationship with the body, because it does start from the mixing of the sperm and the egg. So there's a relationship there, but it is something that is not physical. We don't say that it's a physical thing. It is something that is still more related to spirit or to essence. And the soul continues a relationship with the body in this life. And the analogy that he gave is like when a pregnant woman has a child inside of her. And now, depending on the health of the lady, the child will develop accordingly. If the mother is, drinking and smoking and doing unhealthy things, that child will be born with disabilities, right? The child is not going to have a healthy life. And all of that will come to fruition when the woman gives birth. And so in that same way, we have a soul that is inside of us that is continuing to develop. And depending on how we act in this life, we're kind of like a mother carrying a soul. If we act unhealthily, smoking spiritual cigarettes or drinking spiritual or doing bad things, meaning lying, cheating, stealing, all of these, the sins that we have that we consider, then that affects the development of our soul. And if we do good things, we're good to creation, where we have a relationship with God, we're kind, we're compassionate, we're generous, all of these good things, then that goes towards developing a healthy soul. Now, when we die, that is when the body kind of, we can say it kind of gives birth to the soul. The soul then leaves the body and it's given a new creation, a new dimension or a new realm, and its existence continues in the afterlife. And the soul may be given another type of body, because the soul is essence, not a physical body. It'll be given like another spiritual body, a more refined body. But however the soul comes out, if it's diseased and not developed well, that state of existence is what we call hell. Then you have to suffer for that. And if you've developed it and nurtured it, then that state of existence is called paradise. Then that's what heaven is, that you have a healthy existence, you have a relationship with God. And so that is what we call how the soul is created, how it develops, and how it continues in the hereafter. And just quickly, I know I mentioned hell. We also don't believe hell is infinite. We don't believe that hell is eternal. We do believe there is an end to hell. That hell is also, even though it's a state of existence of being unhealthy, at the same time, hell is also more like a hospital. When you're diseased, you go to a hospital, and sometimes you got to take treatment that's very difficult. If you've gone through chemotherapy already, it's very difficult on the body, and it's a painful treatment. So hell is also, for being in that disease state, a painful treatment. It's a treatment by fire. And the reason the analogy of fire is used in religious literature is because fire cleanses. It kills everything, all bacteria. And when you put metal or anything through fire, it comes out purified. So fire is a purifying thing, but it's heat. So in that same way, that is a philosophy of hell in Islam, in the sense that it's supposed to purify you of your diseases. It's painful, it will hurt, it will last a very long time depending on your disease. But then a time will come, we find in narrations of the Prophet, peace be upon him, where he says that the doors of hell will be swinging and nobody will be inside, because slowly over time, people's souls will be cured and they'll be able to enjoy some level of health and be transferred, you can say, to the state of existence called paradise.
What does it mean specifically that the Ahmadiyyat are Muslims for peace? I would think that everyone is for peace. But I would also sense this slogan is talking about Mirza Ghulam's reforms.
So, when we say we're Muslims for peace, and again, I agree with you. I think 99% of the world wants peace. It really is that small minority, whether they're Muslim or whether they're Buddhist extremists or the Lord's Resistance Army, the Christian extremists in Uganda, whatever it is, it's a small 1%. The majority of people do want peace. And so everyone wants peace. The reason we kind of adopted this phrase was because in the last number of years, in the 80s and 90s, and then especially after 9/11, there's just been narrative in the media that Muslims are warmongers, that Muslims want to create terror, that Muslims want to strike fear, that Muslims want violence. And so it really was just a way to convey the message that, as Muslims, we stand for peace. Islam as a religion itself, the word Islam literally means to submit to God, and through that submission to achieve peace in life. And when you submit to God, then you also are submitting the creation of God. When as Muslims, our phrase of greeting isn't just hello or hi, it's assalamu alaikum, which means may peace be upon you. So a religion that actually says whenever you meet anybody, even if they're Christian or Jew, that's the phrase we should be saying, peace be upon you. When we're wishing peace upon everyone, then that's what this religion is based upon. And we can't let that small minority overtake the narrative and let them run away with it. Then we have to show the world that Islam is a religion of peace, even though everyone is, but that's just what people think. And you'd be surprised to know how many people that when I meet them and talk to them, they actually have no idea what Islam actually teaches. Many of them think the religion itself actually is a religion of terror, but the peaceful Muslims are just not, they moved away from those fundamentals of Islam. When the reality is that the terrorist ones have moved away from the fundamentals, the peaceful ones stick to the fundamentals of peace. And so I remember speaking to an Iraq war vet, and he told me that, no, your religion is this, you guys believe this is what you do, and you're a good person, but he says, not your religion. And then when I explained it to him, he was like, I had no idea that's what your religion actually teaches. So there is a lot of ignorance out there, and I don't blame people for the ignorance. Because again, if I was living in this society in a busy life and all I heard was if all I knew was what I heard on news, then I would have the same idea, right? I would be thinking the same thing, unless you make the choice to go and actually do your research. And so when this is generally what the population may think of Muslims, and I don't think now the majority do, but there still is a sizable minority that thinks Muslims are terrorists or Islam is a terrorist religion. Muslims for Peace was just an easy way to convey the message that we know you want peace, but so do we. And we're no different from you. We're also for peace, just like everybody else. And this is our mission. This is our religion. And this is what we strive to achieve by conveying this message and saying that we all can live in peace and harmony together. Whatever differences we may have, whether it's in skin color, whether it's in nationality, whether it's in religion or belief, we can still live in peace.
Speaking of, what are some of the other misconceptions that you would like to dispel about your sect of Islam?
So some of the misconceptions about Ahmadi Muslims are that we've started a new religion, that we have another holy book that we follow, that we have different practices, we've abandoned the religion of Islam. And that's a myth that, I invite anybody to come to our mosque and to see what we do, what we study, and how we act and how we practice, how we worship. And our holy book is nothing other than the Quran, which was the book revealed to the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. We pray in the exact same way that all Muslims pray. We follow the same 5 pillars of Islam, the 6 articles of faith. On a fundamental level, if you were to see an Ahmadi Muslim praying and worshiping and reading the Quran and another Muslim, you would not be able to tell the difference. And so Ahmadiyya Muslim community is not a new religion. It's not some brand new thing. It really is just hearkening back to the true teachings of Islam. And that really probably is the biggest myth or misconception about the Ahmadiyya Muslim community, that we're a brand new thing, when in reality it's nothing new. It's the Islam that was revealed 1400 years ago, going back to those principles and then applying them in their truthful way in modern day and age, because Islam is a religion that is inherently flexible. It is inherently liberal in terms of its application and flexibility to be applied in different times and ages and cultures. It's not some hard religion that you have to wear and dress this way. You have to live like you're living in a desert 1400 years ago. It's a religion that is adaptable, because the Quran doesn't always go into nitty-gritty details. It gives you principles, and then those principles you can apply in any situation. And so that really is the true message and the teaching of Islam. And that's what the mission of the Ahmadiyya Muslim community is.
I'd like to thank my guest, Imam Hammad, for joining me here today, and I shall do so now. Thank you, sir.
Again, thank you for having me. I really enjoyed our conversation.
Here's the thing. In 1955 in Montgomery, Alabama, a young black girl refused to move to the back of the bus, which was required by law. She believed it was her right to sit in whatever seat was available, and she informed the driver of this. This caused quite a commotion with the other passengers, some of whom stole and damaged her school books. She was later arrested, all the while shouting that this should be her constitutional right. This may sound familiar, but this is the story of Claudette Colvin. This did not cause a national outrage. Her story was not taken up by the NAACP. Ms. Colvin attributes this to her age, she was only 15 at the time, her skin color, which was dark, and the fact that she had become pregnant soon after the incident. A similar situation happened later that year to Rosa Parks, who civil rights leaders thought was a more sympathetic character. There are a lot of unsung and unknown heroes in the battle for civil rights, so this is for Claudette Colvin. The toast was for Claudette, not this. This isn't good. Here's the thing. I assume that everyone watching this channel is aware of the God of Abraham. But what about Alexamenos' God? This is Roman graffiti. It was carved into a plaster wall about 2,000 years ago near the Palestine Hill in Rome. The text reads, Alexamenos worships his God. And it depicts a god with the head of a donkey. And it's being crucified. Yes, this is a picture of Jesus. And it's mocking Jesus Christ's worshipers. And it may be the oldest depiction of Jesus that still exists today. Thanks for watching, and may the road rise with you.